Hello, everyone. Welcome to week one. And I've kind of labeled this week Rethinking Education and Technology because as we kick off this course, I'm going to ask you to really be thinking about um, how technology fits in education, actually how education has changed because of the times. And maybe some of the things we need to be thinking about with and without technology to make sure we're meeting the needs of all our students. So, and I'll set that context a little bit in a minute or so. But before that, I wanted to do a quick introduction. My name is Dan McDowell. I'm the Director of Learning and Innovation in the Grosse Mount Union High School District. I started that on July 1, so just a few days now. Before that, I was in the role of Director of Instructional Technology in the same district, the Grosse Mount Union High School District, for 6 years, where I saw a rollout of a one-to-one Chromebook program. I helped manage some of our technology and our CTE programs. I did lots of professional learning with teachers on how to best bring technology into the classroom. I was a classroom teacher for 18 years at West Hills High School. I taught social studies, photography. I taught web design and journalism, humanities, a number of other courses along the way during my time there. In my free time, I do courses like this for the Master's in Education of Teaching. I also have worked in the Learning Design and Technology Department. We used to be Educational Technology, and I've been doing that work since 2007. And I am a consultant for Q at Tech Team, and I do some of my own stuff as well. I'm also a Google certified innovator, got in really early on that boat, so what you're going to find is a lot of Google stuff, and that's kind of integrated in throughout. And I know not all of you are Google schools. Some of you may use just traditional Microsoft Office on the desktop, or maybe you're using Office 365. The idea, though, is that all the skills, let's say word processing in Google Docs or Office or Word, they're transferable. And so we're using Google because of the collaborative aspects, which is something the topic we'll cover later on. So let's get started on what the course is where we're gonna go. So the first part is we're going to consider how the needs of students in the classroom have evolved from what they need to be able to do in the future, and maybe some of the complications that their lives have as far as how technology is changing that. So we're going to start off with some talking about kids and social media, information literacy. And then we're going to kind of move into analyzing the role technology plays in the modernization of teaching practices. So how we need to kind of change our teaching to meet what our students need. Next, we're going to apply these concepts, and this is kind of going throughout the course to your classroom setting. So all of you are in different settings as far as the classroom is concerned. Some of you are in elementary school, middle school, high school, maybe some non-traditional roles, but I'll be asking you to be reflecting on what that looks like in your classes. And then finally, you're going to be creating a technology-based lesson or project for your students and sort of creating what I call an implementation plan at the end to see how you can take some of the core concepts of this class and make them come alive in your class, short-term and long-term. So that's kind of our big course overview, the path that we're going to be taking. And now I want to kind of set the context and then end with kind of my universals as far as what we need to do. So the tools of the classroom are changing. It used to be the tools were very much paper and pencil and Sharpies and rubber cement for those of you, and maps that hung in the front of the classroom that anybody could see, big tubs of National Geographics and other magazines to cut out. And some of you may still use these things, which is fine. But we also have to look at how technology is evolving and how they're bringing these a whole another layer of tools to you as the teacher and to our students, from Flipgrid, which I know you've already used, and you'll use it again, Canva, WeVideo, editing videos online. That's really crazy technology, thinking about where we were 15 years ago, creating infograms, using Pear Deck or Nearpod to do engagement, to deliver lessons through Google Classroom or potentially Canvas or any of the other learning management systems, Google, Adobe Spark for creating multimedia. There's so many great tools that our tool belt it's almost overwhelming. And in some cases, I will be telling you, less is more. So you pick a handful that work well for you, while still maybe dabbling with others as you go. But we have to understand that these tools have exponentially increased the power of you and your students. So what are they going to do? Well, a poster board is fine, but maybe they can make a multimedia Canva or an infographic or a video on top of a poster board or instead of a poster board, so we're not stuck always with the same things that we're always doing. And giving kids the ability to represent their thinking and themselves digitally, because that's what a lot of the world has turned into. And again, for sometimes we might go, oh man, this is taking the world in a whole different place that we don't like, but we're there. So we have to make sure our kids are prepared for that world. I also believe in a culture of innovation. So continuing to look for new and better ways to do things and not just be stuck someplace because that's what we were. And stuck's even the wrong word. Not just we repeat ourselves because it worked well one year, but maybe that works. Maybe there's different ways. Might not be for everything. And I promise it's not a trap. Instead, it's to prepare them for their futures. They have to be able to think and change and adapt. Because when they're working for wherever they're working, there's a good chance that the job is going to change multiple times. And they're probably going to change jobs. The data out there says that our students today are going to be changing jobs multiple times, unlike lots of people from my generation and the generations before me, where you got in a job and were in it for years and years, maybe your whole career. And so it's important for us to prepare them for that future and be able to adapt and problem solve and think and all that. So we need to evolve, rethink, and when necessary, redesign our instruction using these ideas and using these tools. Okay? So, and I believe that the classroom should be student-centered, that the teacher should not be more tired than the students at the end of the day, that it should be inquiry-based. Kids can Google stuff with facts. We shouldn't be expecting them to just regurgitate facts. They need to be looking into the questions and figuring the questions out maybe, and coming back with something that isn't just C on a multiple choice test. It needs to be skills-based, so not only content, but skills, and it could be thinking skills, it could be text skills, but it could be writing skills and reading skills so that they can apply other places. And technology should be infused where it fits. And again, I don't believe in technology all the time. When I was in the classroom, which seems like a lifetime, it was 6 years ago, but I had access to computers all the time, and I was still only in the computer lab, I don't know, 30% of the time. Most of the other time, I was doing some direct instruction. I was doing some simulations and lots of projects, and sometimes projects involved technology, sometimes they didn't, or part technology, part not, and lots of talking. We have to find that balance along the way. We also have to make sure we're supporting all our learners, and technology really gives us that opportunity to support learners more than we've ever had in the past. So we have to continue to be very proactive and thoughtful when we do that. If you're familiar with UDL, Universal Design for Learning, that's all part of that. You'll find some references to UDL throughout this course as well. And so again, I already mentioned it, finding that balance between what you're going to do on paper and what you're going to do on a computer. And I have a Chromebook there, but it could be an iPad, it could be a Mac, it could be a PC, whatever it happens to be. Finding that balance of how much do you move over technology-wise. And I don't believe in going necessarily all the way over unless you're teaching an online course, unless you're teaching a blended course that's supposed to be all online, then you can move that way. But I still believe in face-to-face, and I personally still like paper, and I don't think we should abandon writing on paper and reading on paper. It's again finding that balance. So I have some we'll call them universals that sort of drive that are central to the whole course. The first is today's classrooms must meet the needs of today's students. And that's really something that we have to consider, because in my past role, in my consulting, I've talked to hundreds, thousands of teachers about what students need, and sometimes we get stuck on what students need are what we needed. So when I graduated from high school in 1990, dating myself here, my needs were different than my son who just graduated in 2019. We have to, and my daughter who's going to be graduating in 2025. Okay, we have to be thinking about what our kids need today, and not necessarily be stuck with the nostalgia of what we think was good because it felt good to us. All right, and be thinking about what kids need, different ways to learn, and I know you've probably heard learning styles. And I'm not going to get into learning styles because the research actually proves the learning styles aren't that much of a thing. But that's for another course. Probably another course. Maybe another topic one day in this course, but very briefly. So we need to find the right path for today's students. We also have to recognize that today's students are shaped and influenced by technology. Again, the biggest struggle I have as a parent, I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 12-year-old. The biggest struggle is technology and that balance of how much do they do, how much do they don't do, how much are they interacting. And my daughter, who's 12, who's going to be walking into that world much more heavily in the next few years. We can't forget that. We have to do everything we can to guide them along the way. And that's digital citizenship and cyberbullying and information literacy and making sure they understand what's real and what's not. And certainly the world has changed even more in the last few years during and then after the last election cycle, and then how social media was manipulated to cause disarray and cause conflict on purpose. And that's crazy. Let alone the little stuff that's happening between individual kids. And I won't call it little stuff because it's huge for some kids, but it's certainly something that we need to be thinking about. The third is today's students need to be prepared for the modern economy by being innovative thinkers that can identify the digital and analog tools needed to find and solve the problems of the 21st century. So they need to know how to read, and they need to know how to, we need to get them to grade level. Okay, so a lot of times we have schools or individual kids who main focus getting kids to grade level in their numeracy or their literacy skills. But if we only focus on those skills and not the bigger picture of critical thinking and creativity and communicating and collaboration, the 4 C's, which will come up later, then we're actually putting them back, and you're not preparing them all the way for the world that they're walking into. And I'll argue that it's more important for a kid to get a nice, well-rounded education than to just be reading at grade level, because that doesn't fully prepare them for the bigger challenges of adulthood, and let alone a job and that type of thing. The fourth core idea is today's teachers need to integrate modern teaching strategies into their classrooms, including project-based learning, authentic learning opportunities, and student-centered instruction. So this is a call to action for you, for teachers, and I hope to start you on this path by giving you some tools to let you do that, because it is tough. Okay, and I also know that this may be the only educational technology you take for the rest of your lives. And more we see these types of courses being integrated into other courses, and it's important for us to also not separate technology separately. And there's a reason why actually today's teachers need to integrate. I don't say technology teaching strategies. I'm saying modern teaching strategies, because project-based learning isn't tech. Authentic learning opportunities isn't tech. Student-centered instruction isn't tech. But all of those will involve tech in some way, whether it's research or the final product or something. Very little of that today is going to be done not on a screen. So let's make sure we're optimizing the use of the screen and the technology that we have in front of them. And the last piece is about you. So, and the kids, but also about you. Today's teachers, students, teachers, and administrators should build personalized learning networks, PLNs that harness the vast number of resources available online. So there are so many things online, and part of it is digging through it and finding it. And one of the things, one of the first two assignments, PLN number 1 and PLN number 2, personalized learning networks, or you could also call them professional learning networks, are about you finding ways to stay up to date. Not only with technology, but with teaching in general. There's amazing resources that are coming out all the time, and if you can find a way to sort of harness that, or at least find what you need and then get out, you're going to be better for it. Your students are going to be better for it. So that's going to be an important piece as well. So those are our five areas that are going to drive the course. And what you're going to find is I'll hit on them throughout the course. So actually, number 5 is going to be one of the first things you do, but all those other items are going to be weaved throughout the course, and it's important for us to kind of recognize that 2019 is different than previous years, and even if we go back 5 years or 10 years, it's the world is consistently changing. And in 5 years, we're going to need to be rethinking that as well. And education needs to get more of a business mentality in the evolution of practices, because the world is continuing to go faster than we could ever, than we want it to be. And there are struggles with that. And I will say, to kind of wrap up, I also don't think you can do everything at once, and everything's going to be a gradual process. And I hope you'll be pulling a few things out that you can do right away and some things you can do long term. And the final assignment will be asking you to do just that. So as you're overwhelmed, understand that I'm going to be guiding you to catalog or prioritize things you can do sooner than later. So thank you for hanging out for this first screencast of the course. And make sure to watch the logistics screencast to kind of say how you do the course, because I know it's a little different because it's in Google Classroom as opposed to Blackboard, which most of your other courses are in, but wanted to give you experience with a different tool. So thanks a lot, and have a great day, and look forward to seeing your responses on Flipgrid and then throughout the course on Google Classroom. Thanks a lot.